Argentina is facing a huge crisis, and that is femicide. Femicide is a term that is for the killing of a woman based on the gender of the woman. So it isn't, one of the motivating factors is because they were a woman. And I want to talk about a certain case that happened recently. The murder of Ursula Ahilo. She was 18 years old. She was killed in her hometown of Rojas by her ex-boyfriend. Here's a quote from a protest that happened because of this killing. "We want to be able to walk the streets without having to look over our shoulders," said Fabrina Costa, a 26-year-old mother who lives in Palmas. And this is happening all over Latin American countries. The statistic is 1 woman is killed every 38 hours. But what also is a big problem with that is that Ursula Ahilo did everything that she possibly could have. She had filed several police reports against her ex-boyfriend and obtained a restraining order, but that was not enforced. The last time she went to the authorities to report a complaint, she was told that they did not work on weekends and that she would have to come back another day. On that following Monday, the day her panic button was slated to arrive, she was dead. She had tried her best to not be a statistic. She was trying everything she knew what she was told to do. She went to the police. She got a restraining order. And the system did not care about her. And this is a huge problem among women in Latin America, in Argentina. And it's something that her case is just one of hundreds. But that death had sparked a movement. And movements can be very beneficial in trying to get rid of these problems. Because it is a problem. Nearly 300 femicides were reported in the country in 2020. In the first 58 days of 2021, there have been 43 femicides. Natalie's death, Natalie Bardira, was another death that I'd like to highlight. She was killed by her partner, and she also, too, followed the guidelines. She had called the tip line for more over a year, and still she was not able to get the help that she needed. This is an issue that we have to take seriously. This is a movement. When in 2018, a hotline was created to assist women who suffer from violence. They received 169,014 calls. This issue is drastically affecting the women in Argentina, and we need to put a stop to it.
So I'm going to be speaking about some of the factors and strategies regarding violence against women in Argentina. So as far as the factors go, it's important to first and foremost address the macro system of Latin American culture in this issue, and machismo, which is a huge problem in Latin America, obviously not exclusive, but very present. And like we talked about, this is kind of just that strong and aggressive sense of masculine pride that transcends just toxic masculinity. So thinking from a sociological perspective, we have to ask ourselves, is this a social problem? Is it disrupting the functioning of society? Is it disproportionately affecting a group of people? Does it need to be addressed institutionally? And the answer to that is like, yes, all of the above. And you have to ask yourself, is this systematic? And this is very much a reflection on the state's inability to protect women. There are countless of stories of women trying to file restraining orders not being granted, or they do file a restraining order, and then when something happens, the state just doesn't enforce that restraining order. So it's like, why did I even bother if you weren't going to protect me? There's definitely that barrier there. So as far as strategies go, within the last few years, Argentina has definitely stepped up and created a few relief systems. They have also called for support by the Argentina civil society and a lot of the women's movements within the country. So Argentina was selected for Spotlight, which was created by the European nations and the United Nations. This happened in 2017. And this is just a global initiative that seeks to bring attention to femicide in various countries, and it definitely calls for action. They do a lot of collaborations within that. So also, Argentina passed the Michaela Law, which basically requires government officials to be educated on domestic violence, and the Brisa Law, which provides financial reparation for women and children who are victims of abuse. And this is all great and definitely a step in the right direction, but it's also important to focus on prevention, because this is very much an issue built on patterns of inequality that are enabling this toxic behavior. So we can prevent that. That would, obviously save a lot of trauma and time. So culturally, gender roles are still very apparent. While there has been a lot of progression in that area, they are still there, especially financially. Women maybe don't know, or they don't have the resources to be financially independent, so that could be beneficial, just empowering women to have more independence. Also looking at the policies, are there any policies that are preventing women from being independent? We definitely need to see a lot of advocacy in the judicial system in that sense. And this can also look like, in some Latin American countries, homicide is obviously a felony, but femicide is an aggravating factor, and it's actually a more severe charge. So just being sure that, due to the severity of the issue, there's a more fitting and severe charge and consequence in all aspects.
Okay, so just some closing remarks before I get to the social and economic justice advocacy for this population. So Argentina is a large country in South America, and its history of political and economic instability goes back a long way. Human rights there are often ignored, but more specifically, women's rights tend to be even more disregarded, and so women are constantly facing discrimination, economic discrimination, gender-based wage gaps, poor job security, and extreme violence. There is gender-based killing of women there, which is called femicide. The number of murders are only increasing as the years go on, and this is happening to women of all ages. And these women are doing things to try to prevent this, like filing complaints and applying for legal protection. But the system there is so broken, and it's allowing for murders to continue to happen. So one thing that's been a huge thing there is Ni Una Menos, which translates to not one less. It's the biggest movement that began in 2015 that is fighting against the femicide in Argentina. This movement is calling for an end to abuse and violence, along with a few other things like legalization of abortion. And so just all in all, it's fighting for women's rights. So along with Ni Una Menos, the Latin American Group for Gender and Justice focuses on two urgent problems, which are violence against women and access to reproductive rights. But in relation to our topic, violence against women, this group is promoting networks for lawyers, practitioners, organizations, non-government organizations, so NGOs, and they're reaching out to these people because they have expertise on women's rights and they can provide legal counsel for these women. They're also trying to make websites that will provide resources for anything that they might need. They're creating a database that promotes good practices, and lessons learned in defending women's rights. They're also trying to promote conversations between lawyers, practitioners, NGOs, organizations, and public authorities so that these people can meet and discuss what's happening to women all across Latin America, but also in Argentina. And so overall, an effective method to spark urgency among people is to put this in the public eye. Word about this has to spread in order to add pressure onto public officials in Argentina. And using your voice here in the US can help so much. Educating yourself, understanding how these women feel and what they're going through is only the beginning process in advocating. And so although you may not seem like you're helping, these simple little steps can help so many women across Argentina and Latin America in general.